All right, get ready because today we're going deep on something pretty crazy,
hmm
what would happen to Earth if humans just suddenly disappeared?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those thought experiments that
Yeah.
really makes you think, like, wow, where do we actually fit in here?
Totally. And we've got this awesome article called If Humans Disappeared on Earth to help us out. It's
Nice.
full of these amazing ideas. So picture this. All humans gone. Just like that. Poof. What happens to the planet first?
Well, you might be surprised how fast nature takes over again. This article, it says within a year, like, the air quality would be so much better.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a year.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly, right?
That's so fast. We're
Yeah.
always like polluting, right?
Yeah, exactly. But without us around making all that mess, the wind and rain, they just clean everything up.
Wow.
All the pollution we've been putting out there for like forever, it would start to disappear. It wouldn't be perfect everywhere right away, though.
Makes sense. I'm thinking about all those abandoned factories and power plants.
Yeah.
Those probably aren't super clean.
Yeah, good point. Actually, the article says those places could be kind of dangerous right after we're gone. Uncontrolled fires, maybe even explosions, especially at places like oil refineries or like nuclear power plants.
Okay, so not perfect right away, but overall it sounds like the planet would start to recover pretty quick. But what about our cities? What happens to them?
Well, they wouldn't stay cities for long.
Yeah.
Think about it. Plants bursting through the pavement, trees growing on rooftops.
Oh, wow.
It would be wild.
Yeah, like something out of a movie, right? But
Yeah.
like a green movie.
Uh-huh, exactly. They call it urban rewilding in the article. And it's already happening in some places, believe it or not, like Chernobyl.
Oh, yeah.
Since the accident there, the wildlife has just exploded. Nobody could have predicted that.
So you're saying we'd have deer walking around malls and foxes living in skyscrapers?
It's crazy, right? But it could actually happen. The cities would become these totally new ecosystems. It would be a gold mine for scientists who want to study how nature adapts when we're not around messing things up.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the air gets cleaner, cities turn into forests. What else? What about all the other pollution?
Ah, that's a big one. Nature would definitely start healing, but some of the things we've done will have effects that last way longer than we do.
You mean stuff like plastic and nuclear waste?
Yeah, exactly. The article makes it clear that some things just won't go away for generations, like plastic. It takes forever to decompose. We'd leave behind plastic trash that could last for millions of years.
Wow. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is.
It's ironic, really. Some of the toughest stuff we've made is also causing the biggest long-term problems.
It's true. It shows how complicated our impact on the planet really is.
For sure. But let's talk about something a little happier. What about animals?
Mhm.
I'm really interested in what happens to them when we're gone.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The article describes a world full of animals. Their populations would explode.
No way.
Yeah.
So they'd be everywhere.
Everywhere. Huge herds of bison all over the Great Plains, wolves howling in the forests again. It'd be amazing.
Wow. It's like we hit the reset button on evolution and gave all these species a chance to be what they were meant to be.
Exactly. And who knows what kind of new animals might evolve without us around? Natural selection would take over, and we might see brand new species emerge.
Whoa. New species in a world built from the scraps of our civilization. That's kind of a mind-blowing thought.
Oh.
Speaking of scraps, I'm curious, what would actually last the longest? Our buildings, our art, technology.
Now we're getting into guesswork territory.
Yeah.
But it's fun to think about. The article suggests that some of the stuff we'd least want to be remembered for might actually be what lasts the longest, like, nuclear waste. That stuff stays radioactive for thousands of years.
So even after our cities are gone, that dangerous stuff would still be around.
Yeah. A pretty stark reminder of how our actions can have unintended consequences. Of course, other stuff could last for a long time too, depending on what it's made of and, what nature throws at it.
It makes you wonder, right? If someone found our stuff thousands of years from now, what would they think? What story would they come up with?
That's a question for the ages. What would tell the real story? The ruins of our cities, or all the pollution we left behind?
It's like a giant puzzle, and how you put it together depends on who you are.
Totally, and maybe that's the biggest lesson here. Even without us, our story doesn't have just one ending. It keeps changing, depending on nature and how people see it.
It really makes you think about what's important, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What parts of our culture, what we believe in, what we've accomplished, what would actually last.
It's a big question, and it's something we should all be thinking about, not just as a thought experiment, but as like a guide for how we live our lives and how we treat the planet.
It's crazy to think about, you know? These places we've built, all carefully planned out, and then nature just comes back and takes over, like a slow-motion invasion.
It is kind of wild, isn't it?
But let's step back for a sec. We talked about the air getting cleaner, but what about all the other pollution we've made?
Right, right. That's a really important point. Nature would start to heal itself, no question. But some of the things we've done, well, they have consequences that stick around for a long, long time.
You talk about things like plastic.
Right.
And all that nuclear waste.
Yeah, those are big ones. The article, it basically says that some pollutants, they're going to be here for generations, maybe even thousands of years, like plastic, for example. It takes so long to break down. We'd leave behind plastic garbage that could last for millions of years.
Millions. Wow. That's kind of depressing. It's like some of the strongest things we've created are also the worst for the planet in the long run.
It's true. It really shows you how complicated our impact on the planet is. We do good things, but we also leave a lot of messes behind.
Definitely. But let's switch gears for a bit and talk about something more positive. What happens to the animals when we're gone?
Oh, that's where things get really exciting. The article paints this picture of a world just teeming with animals. Like their populations would rebound like crazy.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Like everywhere.
Everywhere. Think about it. Giant herds of bison roaming across the plains, wolves howling in the forests of Europe. It would be incredible.
Wow, it's like we hit the reset button on evolution, you know?
Huh?
Gave all those species a chance to thrive the way they were supposed to before humans came along.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe all sorts of new animals would evolve without us around to interfere. Natural selection would take on a whole new dimension. We could see completely new species emerge.
Now, that's a mind-blowing thought. New species evolving in a world built on the ruins of our civilization. Speaking of ruins, what do you think would actually last the longest? Our buildings, the art we made, all our technology.
Now we're getting into speculation territory.
But it's a fun thought experiment. The article, it actually suggests that some of the things we'd least like to be remembered by, those might be the things that stick around the longest, like nuclear waste. That stuff stays radioactive for like thousands of years.
So even after all our cities are gone and everything, that hazardous waste would still be there.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. A reminder that our actions can have consequences we don't even think about. Of course, other stuff could last a long time too. It all depends on what it's made of and how well it stands up to the forces of nature.
It makes you wonder, if someone found our stuff way in the future, what would they think? What kind of story would they piece together about us?
Oh, that's the question, isn't it? What remnants would tell the most accurate story? Would it be the crumbling skyscrapers or the long-lasting stain of our pollution?
It's like a giant cosmic puzzle, and how you solve it depends on who you are.
Exactly, and maybe that's the most profound takeaway from all of this. Even without us humans around, our story doesn't have just one ending. It keeps evolving, shaped by nature and how future generations interpret the things we leave behind.
That's deep. It really makes you think about what's important, like what parts of our culture, our beliefs, our achievements would actually stand the test of time.
Now, that's a question worth pondering. It's something we should all be thinking about, not just as a fun what if, but as a way to guide how we live our lives and how we treat this planet.
It's wild to think that even when we're gone, the story of humanity keeps going, you know?
Yeah, it's like we're just one chapter in a much bigger book.
Totally. So as we wrap up our deep dive into this world without us idea, what from the article really stuck with you? Was there anything that really made you think, whoa?
I think what really hit me was that image of cities turning into, like, wildlife sanctuaries. It's kind of poetic, right?
It is.
The places we built so carefully for ourselves end up becoming these perfect spots for nature to come back.
It makes you realize that everything goes in cycles. We build stuff, it falls apart, and nature just patiently waits for its chance to take over again.
It's a good reminder that we're not separate from nature, we're part of it. And even if we disappear, that connection would still be there, shaping everything.
Well said. So before we go, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. If humans were to vanish, just like that, what do you think would last the longest? And what would disappear the fastest?
Oh, that's a great question. It really makes you think about what's important, what we want to leave behind, and how we want to impact the world while we're still here.
Exactly. And to everyone listening, we want to hear your thoughts too. Share your ideas on social media, talk about it with your friends, or Just let it all sink in.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop being amazed by this awesome planet we live on.
And even though we've been talking about what happens without us, let's make sure we make the most of our time with Earth while we're here.
See you on our next deep dive.
So long, everybody.